We must defend our democracy. We must fight. The Persians will burn our homes and many will die. Maybe all. It's either death or slavery, or else escape into the unknown. What do you say? Yes? Oh no.
The Greeks cracked their fingers in anxiety and trembled before the vote, for good reason. Every man in attendance, each voter, would take part in the upcoming massacre, unless too old to carry a weapon. No frivolous thoughts crowded their democratic judgment. Of that we can be certain. When the president of a great democracy asked a similar question 25 centuries later, the people's representatives discreetly hid their yawns and answered,
Yeah, why not?
no worries about a spear ripping through his fatty liver. Someone else will put his body in harm's way instead. And the cost? Well, the money is not his either. From the heroic decision in Athens, democracy followed a mostly downhill path. On its way, it degenerated from a life-or-death personal bet into a cheap propaganda tool. Her vote, like any of the 200 million American ballots, has as much weight as a pea balancing against an army of 666 Abrams battle tanks.
Is it some kind of a joke? It isn't even a rounding error. I don't do this kind of deals.
She is right. The difference between her vote and nothing has become a mere trace amount, something useful only in fabrication of ersatz democracy. Perhaps this girl had as much influence on public affairs in her times. In reality, to carry any weight, votes must come in boat-sized blocks. Even better in such packages. And these have to be amassed by the application of the real currency of politics, large amounts of money. Every 4 years, throngs of voters are herded for accounting procedure, so that the ruling elites can divide the spoils. It is a very expensive venture. Hollywood-style emotion string pulling, media manipulations, conventions. Those heaps of election money never seem big enough. But once in office, money is easy to grab. Delightful people called lobbyists will gladly help the re-election fund in exchange for a discreet meeting. Not only will they educate the lawmaker about the certain problems bothering the nation, but generous folks, they will even help to formulate the bill to fix it. And if they drop in a word or two to benefit someone in particular, so what? It's a win-win situation. The politician gets funding, the lobbyist earns his fees, and the sponsor, who pays them both, will enjoy his legislative benefit. The only person left out of such a made-in-heaven deal is the taxpayer, who will ultimately foot the bill. Whether she votes or grumbles, who cares? It's pretty clear what role she is supposed to play. In case of a disagreement, a playful nip applied to the taxpayer's butt will correct her naughty ideas. Or, for the unreasonably stubborn individuals, some time out in a residential facility will help with attitude adjustment. Handguns, the firearms we carry, these will ensure our freedom. Some folks fantasize. If they are serious at all, one should worry about them, because objects dropped from such government-owned machines can be very dangerous to one's health. And if they survive, no veteran benefits for them. After elections, life returns to normal, slogans and promises forgotten. New faces perhaps will appear at the head of the 4th of July parade. Other than that, not much ever changes. Democracy. Not quite what it used to be. But what can you do? The problem we face, even if we pay attention, is that business of governing has become a very complicated matter. Got it?
These are intelligent people, and what they say sounds reasonable. But the sound bites mean nothing without details. Like, how much is it going to cost? Who is going to pay for it?
Even the most diligent C-SPAN watchers can't grasp the real meaning of legislative bills, produced every year by the thousands. It's just too much. And keep in mind, running a government, or in fact running anything, without knowing how, usually is a bad idea.
When you are steering, you need some skills. You need to know the conditions of water, the winds that are pushing one way or the other, where the coral is, and the currents. If you fumble, it gets you nowhere, except for trouble. This is why I do not mess with things I do not understand, like electricity or government administration. I hire somebody to do the job. But how to find the right guy for the task? So it's done properly and the price is fair? Not simple. But this is for sure, I'm not impressed with pretty faces and no one gets paid in advance. This is not how I run my business. I neither want to grumble or sign a blank check for anyone, my electrician or a governor. No pay until the light is on.
Unlike the ancient Greeks, we have to rely on deputies, even if we distrust politicians. The simple wonders of direct democracy might not be enough to run a modern state. Not many voters are naive enough to see their representatives as angelic creatures. But even the flawed, egotistic characters could take care of our business if theirs and our interests were aligned. What's good for them would probably be good for us too, if we were in the same boat. But we're not. Alas, job security, healthcare, retirement. None of an average person's preoccupation affect our elected representatives. Protected by the generous, exclusive for them services, a high-ranking politician never have to fear that metaphoric spear aiming at his constituent's belly. Their comfortable lives depend on one thing only: being elected. This accomplished, good life will continue, guaranteed. No wonder the desire to win a political office is great. Like it or not, this is how it works. A person wishing to impact the nation's policies must play this game. Unfortunately, this leaves most of us out of the business of governing. The seat at the poker table just cost too much. Everything's fine. We can pretend, taking pride in being voters. Let's hope we will be lucky. Let's just trust. Someone must take care of us. We've paid. Perhaps. But since Mom and Pop passed on, no one really cares that much about our welfare. The people we employ to run the state affairs keep proving, as they did through centuries, that their well-being comes well ahead of ours. By far. Caught in a corruption scandal or not, just a matter of luck, they can be counted on to bend the rules for their own advantages, no matter what it costs John Doe. Admittedly, this make-believe democracy worked pretty well during the years of fast economic growth, when crumbs falling from the ruling elite's table were nutritious enough to feed and grow the middle class. Some people have always had more money than others. We've gotten used to it. But 30 years ago, we could all see big economic gains coming at us. The computer revolution had already taken off. The internet was revving up. Biotechnology was surging. Prosperity was straight ahead, within reach of all hardworking folks. So, how well did we do during this bonanza of tech innovations and huge productivity gains? The middle-of-the-road folks gained, somewhat. But for the 30 years of the Second Industrial Revolution, the astonishing technologies realized it was a rather humble gain. Even as we saw the world rushing by, our lives seemed to be stuck in a pothole. What happened to that dramatic growth of productivity? It just disappeared in a puff of smoke? Or did someone grab it from under our noses? Someone did make a killing. A typical Walmart worker makes below $25,000 a year, while Mr. Duke, its CEO, was paid over $23 million in 2012. Perhaps he is 1,000 times smarter and more productive. Maybe he belongs to a different species, or else perhaps his friends own the whole place. Maybe got it for a smile, thanks to the naive and uncritical voters. Then of course, they can do whatever they wish. It's a free country. We sense screws tightening, even if we are not sure who to blame. Isn't that what the Occupy movement was about? We feel the gloom. The culprit will emerge any moment. Who is the villain? Well, who keeps voting on a platform of empty words every 4 years? Who helps cover up the hoax while productivity gains are being snatched from our hands? Are you still a proud voter? Store clerks, physicians, and teachers, we do not understand the legalese of bill proposals, not because we are stupid. We just have neither the relevant training nor the time for proper analysis. To expect otherwise would be unrealistic, but this is exactly what our pseudo-democracy requires. Vote, sign that check, even if you don't know what you're signing. Don't worry. We will take care of the details.
Forget it. I'm not paying till the lights are on.
Is this really the only choice we have? The business of government is just too complicated for us to comprehend. True. But do we need to understand why this big chunk of metal called an airplane stays up in the air? We just buy a ticket and fly, because we can evaluate airlines by their safety record, cost, and punctuality. We can calculate government's efficiency just the same way, by their effectiveness. We are experts in figuring out where the conditions of life are best, where incomes are optimal, and where the hand of government is lightest, without taking hopeful, silly gambles.
I am not going to make any bets here.
Priced out of the big political game now, we can regain control of our lives. But we have to start making bets on things we do understand. Focus on business we can change. An enlightened voter may skip the polling box, where her vote means next to nothing, declaring instead to the incompetent or corrupt government,
Kiss my ass.
After all, unlike slaves in ancient Greece, we do have a choice. We can move to other and better places. She may take her income-producing hands and head somewhere else.
This is my vote.
Unlike the painless electoral booth experience, such a decision assumes personal risk and, sometimes, far worse than aching muscles. But this is democracy like the ancient Greeks once practiced. The risk, the pain, and the reward, all tied into one package, go to the same sweaty, trembling body. In a real democratic choice,
Yes? Oh no.
Players with no skin in the game have no voice. The moment we open up the possibility of relocation, we re-enter the arena of politics as players of some importance, because unlike the 1 in 200 million vote, our economic contributions have measurable value. Although this kiss-my-ass Democrats' economic potential is not great if alone, multiplied by millions of similarly minded individuals, it becomes a valid argument in the calculus of the political elite. Unlike a meaningless vote, it becomes the money that can go or stay. Politicians listen to money. Once, the country's wealth was tied to its land. The control of crops and natural resources determined who was rich. People, you could always find some poor folks to work in the fields and dig the mines for next to nothing. But now, the really big money comes from the talent and education of intelligent people. And to harvest those moving targets is like milking a running cow. It's really much harder. The big businesses have learned how to squeeze governments years ago. They even invented a board game about it. It's called Make Me, and it's played every time a new factory is considered. According to its rules, governments should say,
"Could you please?"
and cough up some serious money in the form of tax exemptions or even direct payments. It's more fun than roulette, and one can win more money, a lot more. And if the stubborn government breaks the rules of the game, well, after over 100 years in Torino, the Italian automaker Fiat decided to be a Dutch company. After all, that will teach them. Apple chose to pay its taxes in Ireland at the effective rate of about 2%. All legal. Nice, don't you think? No room is allowed for patriotic exultation. The money goes where it's treated best. It's just sound business management. Why can't we learn? Why not break out of the servitude enforced only by our own emotional and intellectual laziness? The ruling classes, businesses, governments, everybody knows about the globalization, except for individuals who still break in cold sweat at the very thought of moving out of their zip code area. The choice to migrate is never an easy decision. The economic opportunity and tax burden are easy to calculate, but there is so much more. Can you leave behind your sisters, cousins, and brothers-in-law? Can you survive without those Thanksgiving dinners? And how about your high school friends still hanging out together without you? Then, how welcoming will your neighbors be? Heck, even the climate. The migration calculus is difficult, but once the results are worked out, the braves will take the ride, accepting the risk, the pain, and the rewards. The meek will vote or grumble. The governments will try to weigh in. Of course, no organization wants to see its power and money slipping away. Nationalistic propaganda, military operatives, and emotional appeal for patriotism are routinely rolled out for the interest no other than self-interest of the ruling elites. And if the sentimental pool is not enough, the government might deploy some harder measures to keep those birds down. Despite their misgivings, the rational governments of the 21st century may benefit from this kiss-my-ass democracy because they need a new regulatory system. No less than an airport needs an air traffic control tower. Public administrations all over the world have been rapidly losing their old controls. The checks and balances, designed in the times of horse and buggy, are thoroughly worn out. Excessive money printing, crazy debt levels, the unrestrained power of big corporations. Evidence of disorder is obvious to anyone who trusts his own eyes. The world governments wobble and shudder, one crisis following the other, as they keep covering their falling apart gears with blank check elections. Clearly, they cannot keep up with the complexities of today's world. At one point, they will crash. One by one, like any out-of-control machinery, taking with them countless lives of voters who would rather trust than think. A new system of democracy is needed. It needs to be rebuilt from its very foundation up.
Oh, big words. Can't we just keep the things simple? Do what's the best for your family. If you're honest, hardworking, everybody gains. A reasonable government cannot object to that, and if they do, it's a big word, and I'm willing to explore it. No amount of flag waving will make me settle for something that's not the best for my kids.
The view of productive people like her, taking off in order to explore the big world, would be sobering to any ruling class, if it happens on a big enough scale. This looks like tax receipts declining. Unlike the submissive no vote, no grumble slogan, the ultimatum of the mobile class, like tough love, may spur changes and accomplish what flag waving cannot: restore real democracy. The kiss my ass democracy is not a viable option for everyone, even if they are less than happy with their rulers. To have a red carpet rolled out in another country, and to be missed at old home, one must have professional skills in high demand. Almost every country has an immigration program for entrepreneurs, scientists, and doctors, but a PhD is hardly a requirement. Skilled blue-collar workers like high-rated welders or qualified machine operators can find as many opportunities, or even more. Even those folks who cannot, or will not, join the migratory flock could benefit from the golden geese's readiness to take off, as their governments are prodded towards better efficiency and lighter touch. This country-shopping democracy is a delicate balancing act. One wants to be in the best functioning system, of course, but being too crafty might end in a penalty kick. All transient movements, leaving and coming, should be perfectly legal. Many eyes look at the New Age nomads with suspicion. It should never be an escape, but a careful execution of one's right to choose. A well-considered vote casted for the best democracy. There is no scrap of land where some government is not already present, with its tax system, courts, and jails. These instruments are essential to maintain a healthy society. They should be respected and supported if fair and reasonable. And if they are not, why move there? They should not get the vote. Acting like the ancient Greek Democrats, whose decisions could bring them pain as much as fortune, the modern feet-voting person can recognize and endorse the best political regime. Putting on the table their own lives, modern vagabonds may support the best democracy, wherever they find it. We could have such power once we start seeing the world past national flags.